Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhav ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Srila Gurudev ki Nitai Gaura Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So we welcome all devotees today to the Gauranga Center and to the Bhagavad Gita program. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to many of the devotees who came for the training and the seminar on the Rajbhog. We really appreciate your attendance and thank you to Balakrishna Prabhu and his team for actually doing this. Let's read a very nice verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 22. Purushaha saparapata Bhaktya labhyasva ananyaya Yasyantah stani bhutani Yena sarvam idam tatam Purushaha saparapata Bhaktya labhyasva ananyaya Yasyantastani bhutani Yena sarvam idam tatam Purushaha saparapata Bhaktya labhyasva ananyaya Yasyantastani bhutani Yena sarvam idam tatam Prabhus Mataji's
Purushasa Parapatha Bhaktya Labhyasvananyaya Yasyantasthani Bhutani Yena Sarvamidam Tatam.
Let's read the synonyms. Purushaha, the Supreme Personality. Saha, He, Paraha, the Supreme. Then, whom, no one is greater. Partha, O son of Pritha. Bhaktya, by devotional service, labhyaha can be achieved. 2. But ananyaya, unalloyed, undeviating, yasya, whom, antasthani, within, bhutani, all of this material manifestation, yena, by whom, sarvam, all, idam, whatever we can see, tatam, is pervaded. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Please repeat the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although He is present in His abode, He is all pervading, and everything is situated within Him. Please hear the purport. It is here clearly stated that the supreme destination from which there is no return is the abode of Krishna, the Supreme Person. The Brahma Samhita describes the supreme abode as Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, a place where everything is full of spiritual bliss. All the variegatedness manifests there is of the quality of spiritual bliss. Nothing there is material. That variegatedness is expanded as the spiritual expansion of the Supreme Godhead Himself. For the manifestation there is totally of the spiritual energy, as explained in chapter 7. As far as this material world is concerned, although the Lord is always in His supreme abode, He is nonetheless all-pervading by His material energy. So, by His spiritual and material energies, He is present everywhere, both in the material and in the spiritual universes. Yasyanta hastani means that everything is situated within Him, within either His spiritual or material energy. The Lord is all-pervading by these two energies. To enter Krishna's supreme abode, or the innumerable Vaikuntha planets, is possible only by bhakti, devotional service, as clearly indicated here by the word bhaktya. No other process can help one attain the supreme abode. The Vedas, Gopala Tapani Upanishad 121, also describe the supreme abode and the supreme personality of Godhead. Eko Vashi Sarvaga Krishnaha. In that abode, there is only one supreme personality of Godhead, whose name is Krishna. He is the supreme merciful deity, and although situated there as one, He has expanded Himself into millions and millions of plenary expansions. The Vedas compare the Lord to a tree, standing still, yet bearing many varieties of fruits, flowers, and changing leaves. The plenary expansions of the Lord, who preside over the Vaikuntha planets, are four-armed, and they are known by a variety of names: Purushottama, Trivikrama, Keshava, Madhava, Aniruddha, Rishikesha, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Sridhara, Vasudeva, Damodara, Janardana, Narayana, Vamana, Padmanabha, etc. The Brahma Samhita 537 also confirms that although the Lord is always in the supreme abode, Golok Vrindavan, He is all-pervading, so that everything is going on nicely. Goloka eva nivashati akilatma bhutaha. As stated in the Vedas, Svetasvatara Upanishad 6.8. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriya Cha. His energies are so expansive that they systematically conduct everything in the cosmic manifestation without a flaw, although the Supreme Lord is far, far away. Jai Shri Prabhupada, Transcendental Purport Scheme. Om Ajnana Tiranandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Sapitam Yena Putre Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nandeham Shri Guru Shri Taparakalam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Savagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Anujana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Savagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gauri Vishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in 1821, Krishna is speaking about his transcendental abode. And in 2022 now, Krishna continues speaking about the transcendental abode. But he now tells us something very important. He says here that the transcendental abode is actually attainable, just like Krishna is attainable. So the first point we have to remember is Krishna and his abode are non-different. This is an important point. Where we stay and who we are, very different, isn't it? If we are staying in, say, block whatever, in whichever part of Singapore, we will not say, Prabhu, if you come to my house, even if I'm not there, it is as good as seeing me. We can't say that, right? Because we and our abode, it's hardly an abode, but if we have their lordships, yes, it becomes an abode. But even then, we cannot say that we are part of our abode. We can't. But Krishna can say that, because Krishna is transcendental. You'll realize in Bhagavad Gita, so many times, the point of what is transcendental and what is material is given as a consistent theme. In Bhagavatam, the same thing is there. Every time we are reminded by Srila Prabhupada that there is a difference between transcendence and matter. And if we do not understand the difference, we are always troubled. Our relationships are troubled. Our difficulties become greater. Our challenges become insurmountable. But if we understand the nature of transcendence and we understand the difference between transcendence and matter, then half the problems in our world will become less problematic for us. So Krishna, it was fine just now. Yeah. Krishna is actually very transcendental. And that's why it is stated here that his abode, his presence, is not only in Golok Vrindavan. Krishna is always eternally in Golok Vrindavan. But at the same time, through his material and spiritual energies, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. There isn't a part of this world where Krishna's energy is not there. As the material energy, Maya, the superintendent of this material world, is nothing but Krishna's energy. This is stated in all our sastras and is accepted by all the acharyas. So therefore, the important thing for us to understand is that while Krishna is eternally in Golok Vrindavan, never should we think that he's not present in this material world. In fact, Srila Prabhupada says so nicely in some purports in Bhagavatam, Krishna is so kind that he has brought Golok Vrindavan just a few 100 kilometers of Delhi in India. Prabhupada writes in the purport. He has brought the entire Vrindavan into India. And we just need to walk into that Vrindavan and we will experience the eternal Vrindavan in this world. So Krishna is very kind. Not only is he eternally residing in the spiritual kingdom, which is 3/4 of his creation, but he has never forgotten us. We are staying in a very far place away from the spiritual world. We are in the material world. And yet, despite being so far geographically, We are never far from Krishna if we can remember his pastimes, if we can chant his names. And Krishna, Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita tells us, not only is present in this world through his energies, but he comes through his incarnations. He comes not only in the spiritual world, is he there, but in the material world, he comes first as Mahavishnu, Kalanodakashari Vishnu. And then he manifests all the universes. And from the universes come the Garbhodakashari Vishnu. And Garbhodakashari Vishnu then manifests this entire material world. And through his navel, Brahma comes into the being. And Brahma then works on material creation. And he then puts all material creation exactly as the Lord would want it. See the power of Krishna. And not only does he come in the form of the three Vishnus. The second Vishnu is Garbhodakashari Vishnu. But after that, Krishna then enters into everyone's heart, each one of us, without exception. He enters into every living entity's heart as Paramatma, as Kshirodakashari Vishnu. And there he sits in the heart. He watches us. He directs us. He is Rishikesha. He is always the master of our senses as long as we surrender our senses to him. In the purport of 115 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Prabhupada says so nicely in the purport that for the devotee who surrenders his senses to Krishna, Krishna as the master of the senses takes over the senses of the devotee and he directs the devotee. This is Krishna. So therefore, how can we say that in this material world the hand of Krishna is not there? Even our senses belong to him. If we take our senses and use it for Krishna, Krishna becomes very pleased and he becomes Govinda. Govinda means one who brings pleasure to our senses, right? One who brings pleasure to our senses. So Krishna comes in our heart. Krishna builds this material world. Krishna is not only there, he comes as Guna with us. Krishna comes as Brahma. Krishna comes as Vishnu. And Krishna comes as Shiva. Krishna comes every Manvantara. He comes in every Manvantara. Krishna comes in every Kalpa. Krishna comes in every Yuga. So Krishna is in every single part of our lives. We cannot say that Krishna is not there. And that is why in Bhagavatam, Krishna is known as Otam Protam. Right? Horizontal, vertical. Vertical, horizontal. It's a beautiful description of Krishna. Just like our dhoti and kurtas and saris, all our fabric, they are all actually made of crisscrosses of threads. In the same way as the crosses of threads are, in the same way Krishna is in our lives. Every junction, Krishna is in the present. He's horizontal, he's vertical. That's what he is. So Krishna is very kind. He comes at every junction of our lives. The only difference is whether we can perceive him. How do we perceive Krishna? By actually becoming his devotee. The more we are surrendered to Krishna, the more we can perceive him. And the greatest way of perceiving Krishna is to be repentant in our hearts. The unborn child prayer says that those who are atapyamana hridayam, those who are in their hearts repentant. Repentant of what? We must be repentant because we have forgotten Krishna. That should be our repentance. That Krishna, for so long I have forgotten you. But now you're giving me an opportunity to remember you. That should be our penance. That should be our repentance. Just saying, Krishna, I have committed so many sinful activities. Please save me from these sins. That is not repentance. Because chances are we'll sin again. The genuine repentance is that, Krishna, I have come into this world and I have forgotten who you are and who I am. That is why the moment we start thinking that way, that is what Prabhupada says is Brahma Jijnasa. That is the start of our spiritual life. And the quality that brings that inquiry is repentance. And that quality attracts Krishna. So Krishna is not only in Paramdhama. The point here is the spiritual abode may appear far away, but he is in every corner of our lives. This is a very important point. And that's why Krishna is Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. He is the origin of all material and all spiritual worlds. That is Krishna. And in fact, it is so nicely stated in Bhagavad Gita. You know, in 1041 and 1042 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says so nicely, he has described all his wonderful energies. right? All his energies. This purport is talking about Krishna's energies. But Krishna describes all his energies in chapters 7 and chapters 10. And he's describing of all the rivers I'm Ganges, right? Of all the fish I'm shark. Like that, he's saying of every, I like sharks, so that's why I can remember that very much. Of all the fishes, I'm a shark, right? Of all the mountains, of all the hills, every single greatness in this material world, it is actually Krishna. It's a representation of Krishna. But at the end of all that, he says so nicely, Yad yad vibhutiman sattvam, Shriman urjitam evacha, tat eva gaccha, tvam mama tejo amsa sambhavam. That means it's very small. He says that actually all the opulence, all the beauty, all the glorious creations that you are hearing about now, they are just a spark of my splendor. Not even, something very large, a spark. What is a spark? It's nothing. And then he goes on in 1042 to actually say so nicely that actually Arjuna, what need is there? Really, what need is there for all this detailed knowledge? Sometimes, we want to understand Bhagavad Gita very theoretically. We write down all the opulences, we study them. If I remember when I studied the opulences in the 10th chapter, I wrote everything down. At the end, I read this verse and I thought, oh my God, why did I write all that? Because Krishna just said, in one shot, he just said, don't waste time writing. Because he says, what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Ekamsena stito jivat. This entire universe, just in a small way, with nothing, with no effort, I'm supporting it. Not only is Krishna so powerful, even his devotee Garuda is very powerful. One time, when Garuda got Amrit, Indra became very upset and he threw his thunderbolt weapon at Garuda. Because the thunderbolt weapon, no one has survived. But when it touched Garuda, it was like a garland touching an elephant. If you throw a garland to an elephant, it doesn't even feel it. It doesn't feel it, So in that way, Garuda felt nothing. And then Indra became very humble and stood before Garuda and asked this question, Garuda, I really like to know how powerful you are. And Garuda said, with one feather from my feather, one feather, right, one big feather, just one of those strips of feathers, if I take one of them, and from there, if I take it into half a portion, and from that half portion, if I take another half portion, with that, I can hold this entire 3 worlds, 14 planetary systems, and with you, Indra, on top also. If a devotee of the Lord can have that much splendor, how much more can Krishna have? If we can have a sense of the greatness of Krishna, we are blessed. We are really blessed. If this congregation now can hear from the Shastras and you feel in your heart that really Krishna is great, then you are blessed. This is the greatness of Srila Prabhupada's books, isn't it? From his books, from his Gita, how we can actually extract the nectar of understanding the greatness of Krishna. We cannot get this anywhere. We are so fortunate, you see. So this is Krishna. Krishna is Otam and he is Protam. And this is very important. In Padyavali is a beautiful gathering of verses by Rupa Goswami, the father of our devotional service. And there, he says something really nice. I think it is text 7 or text 8. Vatsalya abhaya pradaha samaya artati nirvapana audaryat avasoshana aganita Shreya pada prapana Shevya Shripatir eva sarvaga jayatam Ete yata sakshinaha Praladascha Vibhishanascha Karila Panchali Ahalya Dhruvaha. If you have time, if you can find Padyavali, please read it. Because there, the greatness of Krishna is given. Rupa Goswami says, because he is very affectionate, because Krishna is very affectionate, he promises to give fearlessness to his devotees. He removes his devotees' suffering. This is the opulence of Krishna. This is the mercy of Krishna. And then he goes on to say, he is so generous that he takes away his devotees' sins and he bestows unlimited auspiciousness. And now he says, because Prahlad, because Vibhishana, because Gajendra, because Draupadi, because Ahalya and Dhruva testify to his virtues. Therefore, Lord Krishna, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, should be served by all the three worlds. Isn't it a beautiful verse? Why is this verse important? This verse is important because all the great acharyas and devotees listed in this verse, they all agree and come to the same conclusion, that Krishna is an amazing, transcendental, supreme personality of Godhead. He is the true object of our worship. And it is not I am saying it, or it is not you are saying it. It is Shastras that is saying it. So this is a very important point that we should remember. Now there's another part that's really important. In the second part of this shloka and the purport, we've spoken about the abodes. But the second part is very important because there, Krishna himself starts by saying something very important. He says, Purushaha sa para partha bhaktya labhya swa ananyaya. He says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. So now we have established in the first part of our discussion that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is greater than all. Right? All these Sastric points, they put forward the point very clearly that Krishna is very, very great. He's very great. Now the second part that's very important is how to attain Krishna. And now Krishna says very clearly, he is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear. If you want to attain Krishna, if we want to go back home, back to Godhead, which is the goal of all our lives, to go back home, back to Krishna, then that can only be achieved through bhakti. This is what we must understand. It is bhakti that is actually going to be the foundation. It is the ticket, it's the passport to go back home. What's that shloka? 1855? Bhaktya mam abhijanati, Bhaktya mam abhijanati, yavan yas shasmi tatvataha, tato mam tatvata jnatva, vishate tat anantaram. Krishna declares in the 18th chapter very clearly, one can understand me as I am. In other words, we can really understand who Krishna is. How? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, as who He is, only by devotional service. Only by devotional service. So it is very clear. It is not knowledge that will make us come back to Krishna. It is not yogic powers that will make us come back to Krishna. You know, one time Srila Prabhupada was seated with the disciples, and I think it was Ramakrishna Maharaj who told Srila Prabhupada that we have heard that there's one yogi somewhere here. He's so powerful, he has the power to walk across river. He can walk across a river. And all the devotees said, Prabhupada, what do you think about it? And Srila Prabhupada said, well, we can pay 5 paisa and get on a boat and cross the river. That's all. It's not very difficult. Why do you need to spend hundreds of years and thousands of lifetimes just to cross a river? Just pay someone, cross the river. That's all. It's enough. So yogi powers do not attract Krishna. In fact, yogi powers distract us from Krishna. Isn't it true? Instead of becoming attracted to Krishna, we become attracted to the power. That's the problem. Imagine now if all of you had the power to become very small. Right? What will happen? You can go and take prasadam, no one will know. Imagine. It's a very good power to have. Very good city, isn't it? No one will know. You just go there, take prasadam, and they'll only see a plate moving from here and there. But they won't see who it is, you see. So you can think, there's so many yogic powers. You can become bigger than a mountain, for example. You know, I don't know how advantageous that is for you, but you know, it could be useful, who knows? You can become invisible. That's a good way also of getting prasadam. You can disappear from the class if you don't like it. No one will know, right? Prabhu's Matajis, can you move forward? Because we don't have space. Just come forward. Yeah. You can come a little bit forward. Huh? Just squeeze a bit. That's fine. Thank you. Yeah, just come forward. So, Krishna is not attracted to these things. Krishna is finally only attracted to devotional service. It is very nicely stated also, and there's a nice verse. I think it is 11:14:22. 11:14:22. This verse really tells us why bhakti is so important. Dharma, Satya, Daya, Peto, Vidya va tapasan vitaha, mad bhaktya petam atmanam na samyak prabhunatihi. See what Krishna is telling Uddhava. Very powerful. Krishna says, neither religious activities endowed with honesty and mercy, nor knowledge obtained with great penance can completely purify one's consciousness if they are bereft of loving service to me. What does this mean? It means that we may actually be doing religious activities. We may be doing very religious activities. And in these activities, we are doing it honestly, which is a very good virtue. We are doing it with mercy. We are doing it with knowledge. And we are doing it with great austerity. But even if we do all this, it cannot purify our consciousness if we don't have bhakti. If the element of bhakti is not injected into any of these activities remain material. They may be ethical, they may be good, but they will never assume a spiritual dimension. You see the difference? So, Krishna tells Uddhava a very important point, that do not mistake good activities for devotional activities. It's very important. Sometimes we think that because we perform a good thing, it is a spiritual thing. Of course, a good thing is the baseline to become a better devotee. You cannot say, Prabhu, I am always chanting Krishna's names, but then you're violent, you're angry, you're bad-tempered, you lose your temper, you're angry, all the time you have all these activities. You cannot call yourself a devotee. In fact, if you're performing sincere bhakti, Prabhupada says in the purports of Bhagavatam, automatically your anger will be reduced. Automatically you are compassionate. Automatically you are sincere. Automatically you get all the good qualities. So the good qualities come with bhakti. They are not cultivated separately in a seminar. You have to cultivate them through bhakti. You know, you read all the books on self-improvement. You can read all of them. But ultimately that doesn't guarantee that your character becomes sublime, nor does it become transcendental. It is with bhakti that you become transcendental. So this 11:14:22 is a very important verse because it establishes that point. The other thing that's also very important in bhakti, and this is very, very nice, is that Krishna is not he's not going to be attracted to expert logic. Neither is he going to be attracted to erudite scholarship or material qualifications. These things don't matter to Krishna. In Padyavali, there is another beautiful verse. It is, I think, in text 7 or text 9. I can't remember now. But it's really nice. Vyadyasya charanam dhruvasya chavayo vidya gajendrasya ka kubjaya kinnu nama rupam adhikam kim tat sudamno dhanam vamsa ko vidurasya yadava patir ugrasya kim purusham bhaktya tushyati kevalam nacha punai bhakti priyo madhava. Rupa Goswami says very beautiful point. He says so nicely, he's asking this question. Where was the hunter Dharma's piety? That's his first question. You all know the hunter Dharma? In Mahabharata, there was a hunter. He was actually, not only a hunter, he was actually a butcher. And his name was Dharma. Right? What an amazing name for a butcher. It's in Mahabharata actually, right? And so what happened was, one day, one sannyasi was very powerful and he was sitting under a tree. And as he sat there, he was doing austerity. Halfway through his austerity, a crow and a crane, two birds, they were on the top of the branch. And they were making a lot of noise and disturbing the sadhu. And the branches were falling and the leaves were dropping. He became so upset that he immediately chanted one mantra, and the crane and the crow died there and then. Instead of becoming repentant, the sadhu became very proud. I'm so powerful, my austerity is so great that I just chant a mantra, someone dies. Quite convenient actually, eh? Right? If you don't like someone, then just chant and they become ash. Imagine, it's very powerful. So he thought with that arrogance, he walked into the village. And when he walked into the village, he was just doing Madhukari. The whole point of Madhukari, begging, is to become humble. The whole point of taking up devotional service is not to kill crows and cranes. It is to become merciful and compassionate. But sometimes when we take up devotional service, a little bit of devotional service can make us feel, Prabhu, I'm senior devotee. Right? Mataji, I was initiated 2 hours before you. That makes me more senior to you. Sometimes, we do that, you see. We pull ranks. In the army, we call it we pull ranks. And that's what we do in devotional service. So what happened was the sannyasi went to the first house he saw. And a lady came out. And he asked her, Mother, please give me something. She said, I'm going to give you, just give me a minute. She went in, but her husband came. And her dharma was to serve her husband first. So she fed the husband, she fed him, and sannyasi's temper was going higher and higher. And when he came out, he said, how dare you make me wait here for so long? Who do you think I am? And do you know what I can do? And the lady said something that shocked the sannyasi. She looked at him and she said, you can say whatever you want, sadhu, but I'm not a crow, and neither am I a crane. And sannyasi thought, wait a minute. How does she know that I killed the crow and the crane? She was not in the forest. How is that possible? But Mahabharata tells us that because she was following her dharma so perfectly, that Krishna gave her the illumination of knowledge to understand what he had been doing. Sometimes Krishna gives us the intelligence by which we can come to him. And Krishna gives us the intelligence by which to handle the circumstances. That is Krishna. So when he heard that, he became a bit curious. He said, how is it that you have learned the value of dharma? And she said, my dharma is protecting me. And dharma is ultimately coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sakshat what? Yes. The basic principle of religion is coming from Krishna. Bhagavat Pranitam. It is the origin of dharma is Krishna. So then what happened? At that point of time, he asked, who has taught you this dharma? And she said, there is this one hunter, and sometimes he hunts, sometimes he's a butcher. And he has taught us the value of dharma. And sannyasi thought, how can such a person who kills and who's a hunter, how can he teach me dharma? But he thought, let me go and see him. And so he went to see this dharma. And he was a hunter, and this was his livelihood. And so the sannyasi followed him for a day. And out of curiosity, he said, how is it that someone performing such duty can be considered more saintly than I am? And Dharma, the hunter, said that frankly speaking, I have no piety. I am full of so much of sins. But Krishna is so kind that because at this moment I am situated in this position, I am doing it to the best of my ability. And I am praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that someday I come out of this. So Rupa Goswami says that where was Dharma's piety? Actually, his piety was mired in his nature of work. And yet, Krishna was very kind to him. Second point, Rupa Goswami says, where was Dhruva's maturity? Dhruvasya, where was his maturity? When Narada Muni came and told him, go back home, why are you standing here? What is it you want? Dhruva Maharaj should have asked for pure bhakti, but he had no maturity. He said, I want to become greater than my father. If you can find an honest path and way to do it, give me advice. Otherwise, leave me alone. That was his maturity. So he did not have maturity. And yet, Krishna accepted him as a great devotee. Rupa Goswami then goes on to the third person, and he says, where was Gajendra's knowledge? Gajendra was an elephant. No PhD, no MSc, no BBA, nothing. He was just an elephant. He had no knowledge. When he was caught by the crocodile, all he could do was surrender to Paramparayanam. That source of all sources of shelter I surrender to. And because he surrendered that way, Krishna in his heart made him remember mantras from the time of his birth as Indradyumna Maharaj. And then he chanted all the shlokas. So Rupa Goswami argues with all of us, where was Gajendra's knowledge? He was an elephant, but he chanted the best shlokas in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Rupa Goswami says, where was the beauty of Kubja? Kubja had no beauty, right? She was hunchback. She was looking very bad. No one wanted to come and do anything for her. She was serving Kamsa. But she had a desire to serve Krishna. And the moment she did that, her beauty came. And Krishna made her straight. And she became Miss Mathura. She became the most beautiful lady in Mathura. And the point Prabhupada says in Krishna book is that Krishna was not attracted to her external beauty. He was attracted to the beauty of her service. That is what makes someone beautiful. So Kubja did not appear to have anything, and yet Krishna bestowed all blessings on her. And then he says something so nice. He says, where was Sudama's wealth? Sudama and wealth don't get along, isn't it? Right? Because Sudama actually had no wealth. He was completely what? He was completely poor. He had nothing with him. But despite having nothing with him, actually he was the most opulent personality. Sudama went to see Krishna in Porbandar, from Porbandar to Dwarka. Did he get anything from Krishna? No money he got. Krishna never told him, look, by the time you reach back, I will transfer some money. Okay? No problems. I'll do it. Don't worry. I don't have it right now, but I'll do the transfer. There was no bank even. Nothing. As he left, he never felt bad. As he left, he never felt bad. It's very hard. Every time I meditate on Sudama, I think, who can actually be of the standard of Sudama if you think about it? When we come and see Jagannath, when we ask him for something, we always expect at least Jagannath should give us something. Something at least. Okay, we don't ask for much, but something you give us. But here Sudama didn't ask and Krishna didn't give. It's very hard to get that kind of equality. Perfect devotee with the perfect Lord. And as he left, he didn't mind. What does he say? I think there's a famous shloka. Kwaham daridra Kwaham daridra papiyam. Kwaham daridra papiyam. 10th canto, I think 81st chapter. He says, who am I? Kwaham is who am I? I am nothing but a poor beggar. And not only am I a poor beggar, I am full of sin. Papiyam. I'm full of sin. And he says, Kwa Krishna Sri Niketanaha. Who is Krishna? But the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? He is full in his 6 opulences. Brahma Bandhu Iti Swaham. I am just a friend of a Brahmana, not even really a Brahmana. Bahubhyam Parirambitaha. And he says, even though I am nothing, he has embraced me with his 2 arms. So for Sudama, that was enough. He didn't want anything else. He just felt, Krishna saw me, he gave me darshan, that is enough. So when we come to Gauranga Center, just seeing Jagannath and saying, Jagannath, you have given me darshan, that's enough. That's all we need. We don't need anything else, and we become perfectly self-satisfied. We don't need prasadam. Everybody's laughing very tentatively. Right? We just need darshan. And with darshan comes prasad. So we don't have to worry about it. So then he says finally, where was Kubja's beauty? So we go through. Where was Dharma's what? Piety. Then what's the next one? Where was Dhuma's maturity? So piety was a disqualification. He had no piety. Maturity is disqualification. He had no maturity. Then Gajendra had no knowledge. He had no knowledge. And then Kubja had no beauty. And then Sudama had no wealth. And now Rupa Goswami says, where was Vidura's noble birth? He had no noble birth. He is considered by Duryodhana as the son of a capped mistress. He was nothing. And yet, Vidura's place was the only place Krishna wanted to stay when he came to Hastinapur. Duryodhana practically rolled out the red carpet to Krishna and said, Krishna, come and stay with me. Right? I'll give you everything. But Krishna said, no, it's okay. I'm going to stay with Vidura. Vidura had low birth. He was nothing. But he stayed with him. And when Vidura's wife was also a great devotee, saw Krishna became our guest, she panicked so much. She had bananas and she wanted to offer it to Krishna. She peeled the banana and gave the peel. Banana she kept. Imagine. I think it can happen to us, you know. It happens to us when we serve our spiritual masters, isn't it? You realize when you serve your spiritual masters, you do the most craziest things you're not supposed to do. And that's the day everything breaks down. The mic doesn't work, the sound system doesn't work, things that are supposed to go right, everything goes wrong. Vidura and his wife felt that way. They were full of disqualifications. But for Krishna it didn't matter. So what if your birth is not noble? You are a devotee. You're a devotee. And then finally he says, where was Ugrasena's chivalrous strength? Ugrasena was supposed to be the leader of the Vrishni, Andaka and Bhoja dynasty. And yet he was imprisoned by Kamsa like an ant, like an insect. Where was his strength? No strength, no maturity, no knowledge, no beauty. What else? No piety, no noble birth, isn't it? So you can see so many disqualifications. But at the end, Rupa Goswami says so nicely, Lord Madhava is pleased only by devotional service, not by material qualifications. I think you will never forget this verse. Right? Rupa Goswami is such a master that he's given a verse with simple examples that we will never forget actually. So what does this tell us? It tells us that at the end of the day, bhakti is the way to go forward. But there is one other point that's important in this shloka, and the word that's being used here is ananyaya. Ananyaya means there must be a certain way in which this bhakti is done. Kubja had it, Dhruva had it, Gajendra had it, Sudama had it, Ugrasena had it, all these, Dharma had it. They had the material disqualifications, but their bhakti was ananyaya. And what is ananyaya? Ananyaya means unalloyed and undeviating, isn't it? Undeviating. Undeviating means no matter where we go, our focus is always on Krishna. No matter who we are with, our Lord is always Krishna. In other words, Krishna is our whole and our soul. What is that verse? Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam. Right? Tapta jivanam. The gopis say that, my Lord, it is nectar to hear your words. Tava kathamritam. But this amrita of Krishna's katha is tapta jivanam. It is actually supporting our life and our soul. This is the point. Devotees live for Krishna, and Krishna lives for his devotees. So when you talk about ananyaya, please remember, if we really want to progress in devotional service, the question now is to be undeviated. No matter what challenges we face in this material world, na chale marg, this marg, bhakti marg, the path, we must never be deviated from it. Come whatever may, our sight and goal is always Krishna. In 1.338 of Srimad Bhagavatam, the word ananyaya is further explained. There are two words there that are very important. One of it is amayaya, and then santadaya, isn't it? Is it there, Prabhu? 1.338? Right? Is it the Saveda Dhatu?
Yes.
Okay, that's the verse. You look at the synonyms. Amayaya means without reservation. That means our bhakti should not be with reservations. Krishna, I will do it, but you must do something. That means reservation, isn't it? You know, when you enter a train in India, if you have reservation, It's easy, isn't it? You go in, you know you have a place. Frankly, sometimes even with reservation, you don't get a place. Right? You get one Buddha sitting there and you can't sit. You just take the whole place. You have to fight with him. It happens. But what happens if you jump on a train without reservation? Then you are totally surrendered to Krishna. Krishna, it doesn't matter. Whether I sit next to the toilet, whether I sit one corner here, I'm at your mercy. Right? So, when I used to travel with my Guru Maharaj, very often he would say, no need to take ticket. We just jump on the train. And these were not short trains. This was Saurashtra Express, Saurashtra Mail. From Bombay to Dwarka. You try taking that train, it's 21 hours. 21 hours taking a chance without reservation is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Of course, the good news Maharaj told us was, see, I'm an elderly person. When I get in, I'm wearing saffron. Everybody will give space for me. But you and your friend, meaning my god brother, it doesn't matter. Just depend on Krishna, chant, maybe something will come. So very often, by the time I got off the train, my dhoti was not white. Because I'll be next to the toilet, I'll be sitting somewhere in the corner, you just can't get a place. Sometimes if you get a place, you come back, it's gone. And that's when Maharaj told me this is the meaning of Amayaya, without reservation. Your devotional service is tested when you don't reserve something and say, Krishna, I'm going to hold back, but I'm going to test how much you can give me. When you really say, Krishna, I really am going to take a chance, but I have faith in you. Let me plunge into chanting. Let me plunge into programs. Let me plunge into the process. That is Amayaya. That is what we call without reservation. And when you do that, then the second thing in bhakti happens. Santadaya. Santadaya is very interesting. Without any gap. See? No gap. If you have a gap, something will come there, isn't it? So when you do your bhakti, without motive, without reservation, then there is no gap. Automatically there is no gap. At every moment of your devotional life, Krishna will protect you. Even though you have no piety, no maturity, no knowledge, so many disqualifications. My point to you is this. When you perform unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service, that devotional service doesn't have to be materially perfect. It just has to be spiritually pure. There's a difference between perfection in the material sense and purity in the spiritual sense. A pure devotee is not perfect in the material world. He may not know everything in the material world, but that doesn't mean that his purity is not there. Please remember that. Srila Prabhupada was asked, if you're a spiritual master and you are always connected to Krishna, you should know whatever is in my heart. But Prabhupada said, I will only know what is in your heart if Krishna wants me to know what is in your heart. Until then, I don't know what is in your heart. So what can I say? So sometimes we look at devotees, we judge them. We think, oh, they're not perfect. Why? The tilak is a bit crooked. Sometimes we think this devotee doesn't know how to dress very nicely. Or the devotee is chanting in a very immature way. The devotee is not sitting down properly, not wearing, not doing something properly. And we start judging the devotees. But how much they are unreserved. How much without gap they are doing their devotional service. Do we know? We don't know. Only Krishna knows. So who are we to understand someone's purity? That itself is our disqualification. That itself is our disqualification. If you really want to be peaceful, to advance in devotional service, stop the assessment of the living entities. Assess yourself. That is how we grow in devotional service. And that assessment should never be on the grounds of material qualification. Prabhupada said that something is judged by its result. If a devotee is able to inspire others, that is the great result of his or her purity. If a devotee does not inspire anyone openly, but one-to-one is preaching and changing people's life, that is also the greatness of a devotee. If a devotee cannot preach but does wonderful service for Jagannath, that is also the purity of the devotee. If the devotee cannot dress Jagannath, cannot preach, but is every day, every Saturday staying back at 8:30 when everyone is going home and actually sweeping the floor, that is the purity of that devotee. And in that way, we don't look to the material qualifications. That is the meaning of unalloyed. That is the meaning of undeviated. That is the meaning of without any gap. And that is why Krishna wants us to take up this kind of devotional service. So that is why that word is here. And please, when Prabhupada uses the word unalloyed, you know how he found the word unalloyed? He looked at the steel company, isn't it? Alright? The banner of the steel company, and he saw there at the bottom unalloyed steel. And Srila Prabhupada thought this is how bhakti should be. In other words, there's no mixture. There's nothing, what's the word? There's no contamination, that's the word. There's nothing contaminating our bhakti. That's how it should be. Is it attainable, Prabhu Mataji's? Definitely. Definitely. How is it attainable? Follow the process and contemplate on what we are doing. That is how we grow in devotional service. And the best way, and we conclude with this point, of understanding undeviated, unalloyed devotional service is in 2 verses in Sikshashtakam that were given to us by Mahaprabhu. The first one Mahaprabhu says is so nice. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundari, kavitava, jagadisha vame, mava janmani, janmanishvare, bhavata bhakti, ahai priki prani. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth. I have no desire for beautiful women. I have no desire, or I do not want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. That is, Mahaprabhu taught us, that is bhakti. That we don't want these things. Just we want that we are able to do devotional service to Krishna. That is our desire. And then he elaborates in the last shloka of Sikshashtakam, right? Asvisyava padamritam pinasumam adarshanam abhatam karotuva yathagatava vidhatatulam pato madprananatas tusaevanapara. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What does he say? I know no one but Krishna. So this is the first thing we must do. We don't know anyone except Krishna. We only need Krishna. Everything else will fall in place. But we only want Krishna. And who is Krishna? He's our Lord. And he says, he shall remain my Lord in any situation. Even if he handles me roughly. And this is very important, because Krishna will handle us roughly. He will. When parents have to discipline children, don't they handle us roughly? They do that. All the time we cannot be talking sweetly to our children. We sometimes have to discipline them. It is sattvic. We have to discipline them. Firmness is needed. Without firmness, we are not helping our children. This is very important. We don't realize that. And so, Krishna does the same thing. And Mahaprabhu says, even if you handle me roughly by your embrace, Krishna is embracing you, but he's embracing you roughly. Sometimes someone says very nice things to you, but at the same time they're firm about it. That's what he's saying, right? So Krishna is my Lord, even if he handles me roughly, or if he makes me broken-hearted. And how does he make me broken-hearted? By not being present before me. So sometimes Krishna may put us to the test, and he may make us broken-hearted, but it does not mean that we are going anywhere. Because Mahaprabhu ends by saying, he's completely free to do anything and everything. This is what we must accept. Sometimes people say, Prabhu, I'm taking up so much sincere devotional service. Why am I put in this situation? The answer is simple. Why not? Why not? What arrogance we have to think that Why should I be put in difficulties? Why is it that Krishna is putting me in difficulties? Why devotees are not praising me? Why should they praise you? Why devotees are not appreciating me? Why should they appreciate us? Is that the reason why we come to Gauranga Center? Of course it is our duty to appreciate devotees. But if for some reason they don't appreciate us, doesn't mean we walk away. That's not a devotee. You see the point? And that's why he ends by saying that he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally, without any conditions. So please, if we want to really develop bhakti, don't place conditions in front of Krishna. Don't. Krishna must set conditions for us, not we set conditions for Krishna. He is our master, and we must follow that. And it doesn't matter how powerful we are, it doesn't matter whether we have any qualification, nothing is needed. Just this unalloyed, unmotivated, undeviated, without any gaps. And what's the last one? You remember trains? Without reservation. Without reservation. Just do the service. Don't think, oh my God, this person I do service with, I'll die. Put me in another team. Put me in this team. Put me in that team. We have all these teams. And we encourage devotees, you don't choose people you want to deal with. That's conditional. I only do service if I have 1, 2, 3 persons. That is conditional. We don't understand it. We don't understand it. If I say I will do the service, but I want these people to be my team, isn't that conditional? If you are really doing service for Krishna, then you do the service in an unconditional way. Whoever is coming to me, they are coming from Krishna. Let me do the work. If they are going to be, masters from hell, let me tolerate it. That's it. And we grow. We grow. This is how we must face the world. This is what Mahaprabhu taught us. So please, this is how we turn this into something practical. Not that it is in the sky all the time and we're just talking about it. And one last point before we end, and this is very important. We always speak about the Param Dham of Krishna as very, very far away. But Krishna is so kind, right? Krishna is so kind that actually He is present in His holy names. He is not far away in Vaikuntha. He is in the heart of every devotee. Every devotee. And I remember Govinda Maharaj saying something so nice. And recently when we had the celebration of his Vyas Puja, we heard this from him, actually, from the disciples or his godbrothers. Someone was saying to Govinda Maharaj that, Maharaj, I desire to be in Vrindavan. I desire to be in Vrindavan. Please bless me to be in Vrindavan. And Maharaj just looked at him long and hard. And he said, do you know that Kamsa was in Vrindavan also? Kamsa was in Vrindavan also. What an important point, isn't it? Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada taught us, is wherever we are worshipping Krishna unmotivated. That place is Vrindavan. Could be Tanamera, could be Jurong, right? It could be Mukhe Bato, it doesn't matter. It's Vrindavan Dham. In that way, become happy in your devotional service. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Srila Gurudev ki, Jai Gaura Premanande. I can take one question. If there are any questions, comments. Radhika has a question. Yeah, the mic is here, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Early on, I think you brought up this point about assessment of devotees. So related to that, the question is that we understand that we are subjected to the 4 defects, and yet very often we hold on to these assessments of situations, when we assess some situation that's not going in our direction or the way we perceive it, and our assessment of devotees as absolute truth. So maybe it would be nice if we could distinguish, although we somewhat understand the definitions through our scriptures, to define what is the difference between absolute and relative truth. That's the first question. And the second is, how do we overcome this mindset of treating our truths or our perception of our truths as the absolute truth?
I think the second one is easier to answer first because it's clearer in my mind. The best way to understand if our truth is relative as opposed to absolute is to check against Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. That is the most important thing for us to do. If we have a perception of what a situation is, or what a person is, or what a quality is, or what is happening, always check it against Sastra. Check it with Guru, and check it with Sadhu. If it aligns and there is information on that, then it is bona fide, and we should follow. And the only way to do that is to turn to Gurus, to turn to Sadhus, and to reach Srila Prabhupada's goals. So that is the safe way. That way, we will never come out of Parampara. We will always be safe. The first point that you brought up is something that we always get caught up with. We always believe that our reality is absolute. We think that our perception of the world is absolute. But we must always remember that the only supreme absolute truth is Krishna. No one else actually has an understanding of the world in absolute terms except Krishna. Therefore, Bhagavatam tells us that everything that we see is relative to each other. In other words, what appears to be my situation is perceived differently by someone else. We must accept that. And we must accept that the reason for that is because of one important quality in this material world, Dvandvaha, duality. Everything is dual in nature. Everything has acceptance, rejection, happiness, sadness. If you look at a person's behavior from a devotee's point of view, there's always going to be something he did right and something he didn't do so right. But it is not for us to judge. If the situation is such that it needs to be discussed, we must talk about such things relative to each other. And then we must base it against Sastra. That is very important. So for example, if two devotees have differences of opinion, they come to a third devotee. The devotee should hear both devotees. And after hearing both, they should see where is the differences and how to resolve the differences according to Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. That is something all three of us must accept. And that is how we move from relativity to absolute. If you always think that you are right, it's going to be very difficult to advance in devotional service. But that doesn't mean you cannot share what you thought was right. Because you live in a relative world. The sadhu should be kind enough to hear someone, Maharaj, this is why I did something. But he should also say, I understand why you did this, but according to Sadhu Sastra and Guru, you should not have done it. That is important. Not to say that what you did was completely wrong, you're gone, you're finished. Then that is also not going to help anyone. So we don't assess anyone. We accept them for who they are. We work with them. We adjust with them. That is very important. So adjustment is A, right? We must adjust. Acceptance is also A, right? And instead of assessing people, we just learn to adjust with them and we accept them. If we do that, I think from personal experience, we will find that we will get their blessings and they will also get the blessings of Krishna. That is very important. Is that helpful? Okay. Oh, yes. Bhagwan Prabhu, yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the awesome class. You mentioned in Bhatyavali 8 that we will never forget it. But I just want to share that many things you say, many of us, I think I speak for everyone here, we don't forget Prabhu. Thank you for that. My question is on this without reservation. So in everyday life, that without reservation is difficult to calibrate, I feel, Prabhu, because it can easily descend into kind of a gambling almost. It's not a very specific question, but how do we live without reservation?
Okay. I think it's an important question you've asked. What Sastra say when you say without reservation is that our bhakti should be without reservation. But to live in this world, we must also be intelligent. If we interact with everyone without reservation, people will run over us, people will step over us, right? People will just kill us. So in this world, we must be careful and reserved. But with Krishna, we must be unreserved. That is very important. Bhakti is only meant for Krishna. And therefore, when we speak of bhakti without reservation, it is our dealings with Krishna. But devotees are very dear to Krishna. Sometimes even dearer to Krishna than himself. So when we deal with devotees also, we should be careful how we deal with them. We should not have anything in our hearts that is offensive when we deal with them. That is also the meaning of without reservation. I deal with Prabhu Mataji without reservation. You may think something of me, you may be a difficult person to work with, but I can accept that this is part of your nature. I don't have any reservation, and I will not hold it in my heart. If you hold something, that means you're reserving it, Prabhu. Right? I'm holding the seat. I want to hold it. That's reservation, you see. But with devotees, even if we fight with each other and have Mahabharata war, at the end of the day, just like in Mahabharata, they would eat very well together in the evenings and fight in the morning. Devotees can do that also. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just saying it. I'm just saying it. I've done that with many devotees. You know, we've had differences of opinions, but at the end of the day, that doesn't change our love for each other. It just means we are different, right? That's all. A devotee should have that in heart. And for that to happen, they must start by having unreserved love for Krishna. Does that help, Prabhu? Huh? Prabhupada said that point, isn't it? Where the monkey would keep the heart in the tree. So Prabhupada said, that's how you live in this world. You have to move everywhere, but your heart must be with Krishna. Then you are safe. Huh? Is that helpful, Prabhu? Okay. We go to Krishna, Prabhu? Yes.
Again, thank you very much for the wonderful class. I think I got two questions. One, something which is related to what Mataji asked, is about this assessment. And because sometimes when you have devotees under you, some assessment is necessary to help them, basically to inspire them in further into service. So is, of course, position is important for that. That's something which I mean, you can elaborate on that. And the second point on reservations also, as a leader or somebody who's taking sessions and dealing with devotees, inspiring them, devotees sometimes share their hearts, and of course sharing heart is of course important, but it could be also they're having certain difficulties in devotional service also. But these reservations then kind of are pushed towards you, and because then the mind starts to play around, because it's materialistic, because you start kind of having certain judgments about that devotee. So how do we, a person, handle that kind of position where he's doing it as a service to care to this heart, at the same time continue being non-judgmental without reservation for this particular devotee?
Yes. And what's your first question? I forgot.
Assessment as a leader. Like
Assessment as a leader.
Very clear.
Yes.
Kind of draw
Yeah. So very quickly, as leaders, as devotees, if you're heading a service, say now you're going to do deity dressing, right? And you have 3 people under you. Now, they are under you, they're learning. You have to assess how they're doing. You have to train them. You tell them, Mataji, Prabhu, not this way, not that way, right? You may be wondering, why am I saying Prabhu? There's no Prabhu on deity dressing, isn't there? But there's going to be. We are going to start training, right? We're going to get a specialist from the deity ministry to come to Singapore and conduct training for deity dressing. And we're going to train Prabhus also. Prabhus are going to start dressing the deities, right? So that's going to happen. Come back to this point. So when you're going to assess somebody, right, then it is your duty. You have to train them. So you have to tell them, Mataji, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then in your heart, you have an assessment now. Maybe she needs more training, she's not so good, and we have to do that. As we are assessing, we should assess without reservation. In other words, in our heart, we assess them for the purpose of the service. but we don't hold it against them. We don't. Because this is just for the service. Like if you ask me to do decorations, right, you will have to take me out of decorations. Because it will be very, very bad. And you'll be very kind to me, of course. You say, oh, it's very nice, but it's hopeless actually. But you must discriminate at that point. You say, Prabhu, you're really bad at this. No offense, but I think you should stop. Now, I shouldn't feel, my God, how dare you stop me from doing something for Krishna. But we need a standard. So if we tell someone this is not the way it's done, that person shouldn't feel anything. So that person also cannot have reservation. You see the point? Both of us cannot put reservations on the seats and say, this is my seat, that is my seat. No. We walk in without reservation. You tell me something and I tell you something and we walk away from it. This is very difficult because we have become so materially conditioned and because our sadhana is not good. If our sadhana is good, it will naturally come in our hearts. It will naturally come. That's first point. So leaders have to do it, but we do it without reservation. We don't judge. At the end of the day, it's for the purpose of growing someone. That's all. Second, when someone confidentially tells us something that they have done or something that is not very good, if we want to receive that, be prepared to receive it without reservation. In other words, we must never judge someone who shares something which is difficult, because we are also going to be subjected to the same difficulty. It may look different, but we also have the same failings. Everyone has four defects, and one of it is we will always make mistakes. Why can't we be more merciful to people who make mistakes? My Guru Maharaj told me that in material world, people say mistake means you only make mistake once. After that, it's not mistake. In spiritual world, that law doesn't apply. In spiritual world, you will make mistakes for the whole of lifetime because you are defective by nature. So please don't use material law to judge a spiritual person. Don't. If you do that, you will offend the person. Don't be so harsh with people and say, how can you make this mistake so many times? It happens so many times in congregations. Not even congregations, even amongst relationships, it happens. But why can't we make mistake? One day you will make a mistake. Am I going to say, on this day, at this time, you told me I made a mistake, now you've made a mistake. Now we both have reservations. So that is not the way to do it. Very good points, Prabhu. I hope that's useful. And now we must stop, because it will just go on. Thank you so much. Your questions are actually more enlivening than the class, because it shows how much you are reading, how much you are studying Srila Prabhupada's books. Be happy in your devotional service. Kartik Mass is coming now, right? And later we'll make some announcements on that. And with Kartik Mass, please think about these things. Very important. Please think about these things, especially how to perform devotional service. Alright, now we come to a very important part of the program before we stand for Gaura Arati. Siddhita Mataji, is she there? Are we ready to do it now? Or we're doing after the Arati? Okay, good, fine. So I don't have any announcements now, I'll do it after that. Let's all rise, let's all chant for the pleasure of the Lord, Gaura Arati. And how do we chant? Without reservations. Right? Without reservations. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Raghunath Prabhu, are you here? Oh, okay. Today Raghunath Prabhu will be leading us in Gaura Arati.